She was laughing again, that high, breathy kind of laugh she never used around me. It drifted over the music, over the clink of glasses, over the pulse of low conversation. I was 3 rooms away and I still heard it. And I knew, without turning, exactly who made her laugh like that. I was standing in the hallway staring at a painting I didn't understand. A woman with a crown made of forks, maybe? I don't know. But I stared at it because it was easier than watching her pretend I didn't exist. We had arrived at the party together. She was holding my hand in the driveway. I remember the warmth of it, how tightly she gripped my fingers when we passed the other guests outside. Inside, her hand cooled. She floated from room to room like it was her debut. That dress, black, sleeveless, back open all the way down to her waist, made sure everyone noticed. And they did. Every man turned. Every woman looked and smiled, that tight, secretive smile. But me? I just became part of the furniture. The first 30 minutes I wandered. Wine glass in hand. Smile fixed. Nodding at conversations I wasn't in. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. That she was just excited. That she wasn't trying to lose me in the crowd, I was just slow to catch up. Then I saw her on the balcony. She was leaning against the railing, wind in her hair, laughing into someone's chest. Not face chest. His hand was on her hip. Her fingers curled into his shirt. And that laugh again. That damn laugh. I left. No one noticed. I didn't even finish my wine. I didn't say goodbye. I walked straight past the valet, down the street, turned the corner, and kept walking like I had somewhere to go. She didn't call. She didn't chase. 10 minutes later, a single text came through. Come. Not where are you? Not I'm sorry. Not please. Just come. And like an idiot, I stopped walking. I stared at the screen. And I made the worst decision of the night. I turned around. The thing they don't tell you about going back is that once you've left, really left, something inside you doesn't return with you. I walked the same path back to the house, but everything looked different. The lawn wasn't manicured, it was overwatered and fake. The string lights weren't magical, they were flickering like a dying signal. Every step I took toward that front door felt like I was walking into someone else's life. One I didn't belong in. The music was louder this time. Or maybe my nerves were just cracked open. The door wasn't even closed, just slightly ajar, like they didn't care who wandered in. I stood there for a second, hoping someone would notice me. No one did. I stepped inside and it hit me how hot the air was. Sweat. Perfume. Cologne. All of it swirling like a storm in my throat. I didn't see her right away, but I heard the laugh again, closer this time. Not hers. His. I followed the sound like a warning bell. Through the living room, past people dancing too close and laughing too loud, I spotted her in the corner of the kitchen, leaning against the island, sipping a drink that looked suspiciously like the one I left behind. He was in front of her. Same guy from the balcony. Tan blazer. Square jaw. His hands moved when he talked, fast and confident. Her eyes sparkled when he said something, I'll never know what. But she smiled at him with the kind of expression she used to give me years ago. I was 10 feet away. Still invisible. I should have turned and left again. But I didn't. I stood there, hoping, begging, really, that she would sense me. That she would lift her head and see me and smile like she used to. That she'd come running and apologize and tell me she only texted come because she didn't know what else to say. She didn't even flinch. I walked past her like a stranger brushing through a crowd. She didn't notice. Neither did he. I ended up on the patio alone. Cold glass doors separating me from whatever that moment between them was supposed to be. I stood out there, gripping the railing, breathing like I had just run a mile. Not from exhaustion, from the panic of knowing. Knowing too much. Knowing too clearly. She wasn't mine anymore. 10 minutes passed. Maybe 20. The patio lights flickered. I sat down on a bench that smelled like mildew and stared at the trees swaying behind the fence. I told myself I'd leave. Just walk out. Uber home. Say nothing. Let it all rot. And then the door creaked. I turned too fast. She stepped out holding her heels in one hand, drink in the other. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second I saw guilt. But it vanished. You came back, she said, smiling like it meant nothing. I opened my mouth. I had 100 things to say, cruel things, sad things, real things. But all that came out was, you texted me. She giggled and walked past me, taking the bench next to mine, close enough that our shoulders touched. I thought you were just being dramatic, she whispered. Dramatic? That's what she thought this was. I watched my wife talk to another man like she was 19 again. I left. She ignored it. And now here I was, being told I was making too big a deal out of it. Didn't think you'd actually leave, she added. I didn't answer. Because now I realized something worse than being invisible. I was predictable. The silence between us on that bench was the kind that presses on your ears. I could hear people inside, glasses clinking, someone shouting the lyrics to a song I didn't know, a woman laughing too hard, not her, not Cressa, someone else, but it all felt distant. Like I was underwater. She sat with one leg crossed over the other, still holding her heels, sipping the last of her drink like it wasn't 2 in the morning, like this night hadn't already shattered something inside me. I glanced at her wrist. Her bracelet was new. Gold and thin, something I hadn't seen before. Probably bought for this night. Maybe gifted. "You've been acting off lately," she said suddenly, as if I had started the conversation. Even before the party. I turned to her, stunned. She was studying the bottom of her glass like it held all the answers to this mess. I didn't know what to say. "I'd been acting off? You invited me here," I finally managed. "Then you disappeared for 2 hours. Her jaw tightened, but only slightly. She didn't argue. Instead, she gave me a practiced sigh, the kind you learn after years of marriage, the one that says, "Not this again." "I didn't realize I needed to babysit you the whole night," she said flatly. That one landed. I felt it like a slap. The audacity of it, the casual cruelty buried in something that sounded almost reasonable. I looked away. Somewhere, deep down, I think I knew this night was just a final step in something that had started long ago, a shift I had felt but never admitted. Something in the way she stopped waiting up for me. The way her phone never faced up anymore. The way she started getting ready in the bathroom with the door locked. "I just thought maybe you'd want to be near me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't reply. Not right away. She stood up, slid her heels back on slowly, one by one, brushing the wrinkles out of her dress. "We're not teenagers, Lowell," she said. "You can't expect me to hold your hand at a grown-up party." No apology. No explanation. Just dismissal. She was halfway to the door when she turned, as if she remembered I still existed. "Are you coming or not?" The words made me nauseous. The phrase echoed, "Are you coming or not?" Like I was being invited into a place where I no longer belonged. Like this wasn't our life anymore, it was hers, and I was just someone she allowed into it from time to time, like a guest. Like a ghost. I stood up slowly. Every part of me said don't follow. But I did. I always did. The house felt different when we walked back in. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the look people gave us, not curiosity, not welcome. Something else. Something like they knew. Or had been told. Cressa walked ahead again, not looking back. She made her way toward the far end of the living room where a smaller group had gathered near the bar, standing in a tight half-circle, all focused on one man in the center. Him. Cade. He was telling some story about a celebrity client, full of dramatic hand movements and fake humility. Everyone was laughing. And when she stepped into the circle, his face lit up like it was choreographed. That's when it happened. He leaned forward, cupped her face with one hand, her face, and whispered something in her ear. She smiled. No, not just smiled, she tilted her head and pressed it into his palm for half a second. Just half a second. But it was long enough to confirm what my instincts had been screaming all night. She had brought me here not because she wanted to include me. She brought me here so she could hide me in plain sight. If I had turned around right then and walked out of that house, I don't know if anything would have changed. I doubt it. The story would have unfolded without me. The ending was already in motion, I was just the guy watching it from the wrong side of the glass. But I didn't leave. I did what I always do. I froze. Cressa stayed beside Cade like it was natural. She laughed too loud, leaned in too close. Her hand rested on his arm once, maybe twice. I caught her adjusting her strap absent-mindedly while he spoke, like she was suddenly aware of how her dress fit. I wasn't the only one watching. That was the most haunting part. 2 women beside me exchanged a glance when Cade touched Cressa's waist again, not shock, not scandal, but amusement. Like it was an inside joke they'd already discussed in hushed tones. And still, I stood there. A man at his own wife's unveiling. At some point, I moved to the hallway just outside the room, partly to breathe and partly to hide. I leaned against the wall and pulled out my phone. No notifications. Just that one word from earlier, come. I hated how much power that word still had. She had summoned me like a forgotten accessory, and I'd obeyed. I felt like I was being trained for something, like she was slowly seeing how far she could bend me before I broke. I heard footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate. A voice followed, quiet, familiar. She's been like this for weeks. I turned to see a woman I barely recognized. Short brown hair, navy dress, eyes like she'd seen too much. She looked at me the way someone looks at a stray dog that's been following the wrong person. "You're Lowell, right?" she asked. "Cressa's husband?" I nodded, cautious. "Have we met?" She smiled gently, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm Mila. I work with her." "Sort of." I used to be on Cade's team. That name again. Cade. That name had become a weight. I just thought you should know, she continued, lowering her voice. You're not crazy. You're just late. What does that mean? I asked. She tilted her head, choosing her words carefully. It means whatever you think is happening probably started months ago. He's not subtle. And she doesn't hide it as well as she thinks. The hallway swayed. Not literally, but it felt like the ground pulled slightly sideways. I wanted to ask more, but Mila had already said what she came to say. She gave me a soft nod and disappeared back into the party. I stood there in silence, her words crawling under my skin. You're not crazy. You're just late. Like this betrayal had already been processed by everyone but me. I needed to see it for myself. So I walked back toward the room, not boldly, not bravely. Just numbly. And I saw it. Not a kiss. Not a hug. Just a moment. The kind of moment you don't share with anyone but someone you already know too well. He leaned in, his mouth near her ear. She smiled and gently pulled at the collar of his shirt to say something private. She looked like herself, but more alive. I was watching a version of her I hadn't seen in over a year. And she wasn't playing pretend. That part hurt the most. Her joy with him wasn't fake, it was real. And I was the invisible man who brought her there. She finally caught my eye across the room. Just for a second. Her expression didn't change. No guilt. No embarrassment. She didn't pull away from him. She just looked at me like I was standing in the wrong place. And for the first time in our entire marriage. I agreed. I don't remember the rest of the night in order. Moments blurred together. Faces blurred. Time stretched. I know I left before she did. That much I remember. I couldn't bear to watch it anymore, the way they moved around each other like it was only a matter of time before the lights dimmed and they stopped pretending. I slipped out just before midnight. She didn't follow. She didn't even text. The house was dark when she came home. I was lying on the couch, pretending to be asleep. I heard her heels hit the hardwood, slowly, one after the other, then a soft thud as she dropped her bag by the door. She didn't say a word. No explanation. No questions. She just walked to the bedroom and the door clicked shut behind her like punctuation. The next morning she acted like nothing happened. Like we hadn't shared a party and lost each other in it. She made coffee, hummed a song I didn't recognize, and scrolled through her phone at the kitchen counter. I studied her from across the room. Not with anger. With confusion. She looked like my wife. Moved like her. But there was something missing, some subtle shift in the way she avoided eye contact, the way she locked her screen every time she set her phone down, the way she laughed to herself like there was a conversation happening I wasn't part of. I couldn't keep pretending. That night, while she showered, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. I didn't have the password, but I didn't need it. The screen lit up with a preview of a text. I wish you stayed longer. You looked incredible. No name. Just the message. And the part that destroyed me wasn't what it said, it was that she smiled when it came in. I watched her through the cracked door. She was toweling her hair, humming that same unfamiliar song. And when the message lit up again, she smiled. She didn't see me watching. Later that night, I sat in the garage with the lights off, just listening to the house breathe. You ever do that? Just sit in your own home, waiting for something to feel right again? But nothing did. I stared at the washer like it might tell me what to do. It didn't. It just sat there, useless and silent, like me. I thought about confronting her. About shouting. About demanding answers. But the truth is I was afraid. Afraid of what she'd admit. Or worse, what she'd deny. Because sometimes denial is more insulting than the truth. Denial makes you feel like you're losing your mind, like you're the one twisting reality. I needed proof. Real proof. Not just glances and smiles and gut feelings. So the next day when she said she was heading to yoga with Aaron, I followed her. Not right away. I gave her 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys, left through the back, and drove around until I saw her car parked 2 neighborhoods over, outside a little place I didn't recognize. It wasn't a yoga studio. It was a boutique hotel. My chest tightened. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself maybe she was meeting someone for work, maybe she had a surprise planned, maybe this was all still salvageable. But then I saw him. Cade. He pulled into the lot 5 minutes later, got out, looked around, not with nerves, but with confidence. Like this wasn't new to him. Like he expected not to be seen. He walked straight through the front entrance. 2 minutes later, she followed him in. And I sat there, in my car, gripping the steering wheel, feeling like the whole world had been tilted without warning. They didn't come out for over an hour. When she got back in her car, she looked relaxed. Peaceful. Like someone who just got away with something. She checked her phone again, smiled again, and pulled out of the lot. That night, when she came home, I asked her how yoga went. She said it was challenging but refreshing. She went into detail about stretches and music and how the instructor had changed the playlist mid-session. She described poses with names I couldn't even pronounce. It was rehearsed. Perfectly rehearsed. And I realized then I wasn't married to someone who was lying to me. I was married to someone who was fluent in it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside her listening to the way she breathed, slow, even, almost rehearsed like the rest of her. I turned toward the window, away from the shape of her under the covers, and stared into the dark until it stopped feeling like night and just felt like nothing. The next morning she left early, said she had client calls downtown. I nodded. I kissed her forehead. She smiled like we were normal. The moment she was gone, I grabbed her spare key and drove back to the hotel. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I didn't have a plan. Maybe I just wanted to see it. To stand where she stood. To touch the walls of the lie. Maybe part of me thought she'd still be there and this would finally explode, everything out in the open, no more pretending. But she wasn't. The woman at the front desk didn't even flinch when I said her name. Yes, Mrs. Caywell checked in yesterday afternoon. She's not here right now. Would you like to leave something in the room for her? Mrs. Caywell. She used her maiden name. I almost laughed. I told the woman I needed to grab something I'd left in her room, a charger. She barely blinked. Handed me a temporary keycard like I was just another detail in a forgettable day. I stepped into the elevator and felt like I was floating into a version of my life that didn't belong to me. Room 407. I stood outside for a moment, keycard in hand, heart thudding like I was about to commit a crime. I slid it through. The light turned green. The room smelled like citrus and linen. The kind of clean that hides what happened hours before. The bed was made too perfectly. Hotel staff had already swept through and sterilized the aftermath. But I could still see it, her heels by the chair. A crumpled water bottle on the nightstand. A charger plugged into the wall that wasn't ours. And then I saw the receipt. It was folded on the desk beside a mostly empty coffee cup. A printed checkout slip. 2 lattes, 1 breakfast. 1 room. 2 guests. Under special requests, I saw her handwriting. I knew it was hers, her way of writing lowercase r like a half-broken N. It said extra towels. Champagne bucket. No housekeeping before noon. I stood there, reading that line over and over again like it was some ancient code. I didn't touch anything. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there, letting the room breathe around me. The quiet made it worse. The silence in that space screamed louder than any fight we'd ever had. That's when I noticed the door to the bathroom was slightly open. I don't know why I went in. Maybe I was hoping to find something she missed. A forgotten earring. A lipstick she couldn't explain. Something I could hold in my hand like a weapon. But I found something else. On the marble counter, tucked behind the tissue box, was her phone charger. Not just any charger, my charger. One I had marked with a bit of tape near the tip years ago because she kept stealing it. She used it in the hotel. She packed it from home. She wasn't hiding the affair anymore. She was borrowing from our life to power the new one. I didn't cry. Not then. I thought I might. But instead I just stood there, heart racing, breathing shallow, staring at a phone charger like it was proof of something I didn't want to admit. I left the room without touching anything else. I drove home with the windows down even though it was cold. I wanted the air to erase the smell. To scrape it off me. When she came home that evening, she kissed me on the cheek. Told me traffic was a nightmare. Said she had to reschedule her 3 p.m. client. Complained about the new intern who kept printing everything in color. And I stood there, hands in my pockets, nodding like a man who still needed confirmation. But the truth was, I already had it. It wasn't just the text. Or the way she smiled at her phone. Or the long showers and late nights and perfume she never used to wear. It was the way she had repurposed the ordinary. The charger. The coffee. The towels. She had dragged pieces of our life into another man's world and smiled while doing it. That night, after she fell asleep, I didn't just lie in bed. I picked up my phone. Opened my notes app. And for the first time since it started, I began writing down everything I remembered. Every excuse. Every change in routine. Every moment I had ignored. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I wasn't ready for that. But I was ready to stop pretending I didn't see it. The note on my phone kept growing. Line by line, memory by memory. Things I had dismissed came back with brutal clarity now, her sudden need for privacy, the weekend girls' trips that never had photos, the way she always showered the moment she got home. And the receipts. The phone calls. The music playlists I didn't recognize suddenly blasting through her headphones like they were the soundtrack of another life. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation is for people who think they can still fix something. I didn't want to fix it. I wanted to understand it. And then maybe undo her, not with rage, not with yelling, but with truth so sharp it couldn't be softened. That opportunity came faster than I expected. 2 days later, she invited me to another event. Not a party this time, a work dinner. Small group, she said. Her boss would be there. A few clients. Nothing fancy. It would mean a lot if you showed up, she told me, touching my shoulder like she was trying to remind herself how to be affectionate. I almost said no. But something in me itched. This wasn't a dinner. This was another performance. I could feel it. She wanted me there for a reason, and I intended to find out what that reason was. We arrived separately. She said it would look more professional if we didn't come together. I played along. The dinner was held at a downtown rooftop restaurant. You know the kind, glass railings, hanging lights, staff that talks and whispers. I wore the same blazer from the first party. It felt tighter this time, even though I hadn't gained a pound. When I got there, she was already seated at the far end of the long table, laughing, always laughing, with that same smooth energy she used to give only to me. Cade sat beside her. Of course he did. As I approached, she glanced at me and gave a tight smile. No wave. No warmth. Just an acknowledgement that I existed and was in the correct spot. I took a seat halfway down the table. Close enough to hear, far enough to not be part of the conversation. The longer the dinner went on, the more I noticed how easily she morphed. Depending on who she was talking to, she became a different person. With her client, she was sharp and precise. With Cade, soft and playful. With me, when she glanced over it all, she was neutral. Polite. Distant. After the entrees arrived, I excused myself to the bathroom. And that's where it happened. I didn't even mean to see it. I passed behind her chair on the way out and her phone lit up on the table. It was angled just enough for me to catch a glimpse of the screen. A text. He's here. This might be fun. Sent. To Cade. Not received. Sent. My knees almost gave out right there. I stood in the bathroom for what felt like 20 minutes. Not thinking. Just existing. Staring at myself in the mirror like a character I didn't write. When I came back, they were laughing again. Louder now? His hand was brushing her shoulder like he was checking if he could push a little more, and she let him. She didn't flinch. Not once. I didn't need another bite. I watched her. Every word, every look, every glance across the table that never landed on me. I left before dessert. I didn't tell her. I didn't wave. I just stood, nodded to someone politely, and disappeared. That night, she texted me just 2 words. You okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I stared at the draft of a message I had typed on my phone but couldn't bring myself to send. I saw what you wrote to him. But I didn't send it. Because she wouldn't deny it. She'd laugh it off. Call it a joke. Tell me I misunderstood. And the worst part is, maybe I'd pretend to believe her just to keep the house from falling down around us. So I did something else. I took a screenshot of that message. I saved it. I saved her words. Not for revenge. Not yet. But because I needed a record. Something I could hold when she started rewriting the truth. And she would. That was inevitable. I woke up early the next morning, earlier than I had in weeks. It was still dark, the kind of hour when the world feels suspended, like nothing new has started and nothing old can hurt you. I sat in the kitchen with a mug of coffee I barely drank, listening to the silence that used to make me uncomfortable. But today it felt like something was finally done shifting inside me. She was still asleep. Peaceful, wrapped in sheets she once insisted we buy together on a spontaneous weekend trip. They used to mean something. Everything used to mean something. Now it was all just stuff. Memories stapled to objects that no longer held their original shape. I didn't want to fight her. I didn't want some dramatic explosion. She'd lie. I'd spiral. And we'd both end up saying things we couldn't walk back. I didn't want that version of our ending. Not after everything. Not even after Cade. So instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I chose myself. I packed a single bag, just the essentials. A few clothes. My camera. My sketch pad. The charger that started it all. I left my ring on the nightstand next to her phone, along with a note. Not a letter. Just a sentence. I see you now. And I'm finally walking away. I didn't wait for her to wake up. I didn't linger in the doorway or take one last look at the life we built. It was already gone. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and walked to the car with a strange calm I never thought I'd feel again. The world outside was soft and gray, like a painting not yet finished. I didn't know where I was going, and for the first time, that felt like freedom. 3 weeks have passed since I left. I didn't respond to her messages. I didn't answer when she called. She sent one long email I couldn't bring myself to read all the way through. I don't hate her. I just don't want to explain to someone why they broke me. If they can't see it, it doesn't matter. I'm living in a small cabin now, a few hours upstate. It's quiet. There's a creek nearby. I sketch again. I cook for one and don't apologize for it. I've reconnected with old friends. I read books without checking the time. I don't check my phone the way I used to, hoping for apologies that never come or lies I'd half believe just to keep things from falling apart. Last night, I stood outside and watched the sky turn orange over the trees. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. Not the version of me who was begging to be seen. Not the one who waited for texts that said come. Just me. And it turns out that's enough.